The man who borrowed my life. I trusted Daniel with the kinds of things a man usually keeps locked behind his teeth. Small, ugly truths and great, beautiful dreams. We met at university, both piss poor, both pretending that intellect would one day replace money. He had that borrowed confidence charisma, the sort that looks like leadership until you realize it is really imitation. I had raw discipline instead. Together, we were an illusion of something larger than ourselves. For years, we were inseparable. We shared a cramped apartment with plumbing that sang funeral hymns in winter and a fridge that was mostly philosophical, its contents more imagined than real. We shared women, too, in that careless, youthful way, like men playing cards with hearts. We shared books and bottles, revised each other's essays, and forged plans in smoke and caffeine. We both dreamed of escape. I worked myself half-blind studying molecular biology. Daniel flirted instead, first with students, then with professors. He learned the art of being useful without being necessary. I learned the art of being necessary without being seen. I believed the world valued the latter. I was wrong. After graduation, we both applied for a research assistantship funded by a private institute overseas, something wildly beyond our means on our own. It was a golden exit ticket from the country that had already decided we would remain average. Only one of us could get it. We promised no hard feelings. Of course, that was before the letter arrived. Daniel got it. I congratulated him, smiled hard enough to crack. We drank cheap whiskey that night and vowed to reunite somewhere important someday. I watched him leave. I stayed. The world did not care. Years passed. I worked labs and part-time jobs. I started a project I believed in, a diagnostic model using protein folding algorithms for early-stage disease prediction. It went nowhere for a long time. Then suddenly something clicked. A pattern. A solution. A wild, terrified hope. I wrote to Daniel. He had, by then, become Dr. Daniel K., junior researcher at the institute that had passed me over. Our emails were polite ghosts. I told him about my theory. He was enthusiastic. He asked for my notes. I sent them. Every equation. Every raw thought. A decade of effort. Offered like a handshake. For 6 months, he answered with encouragement. Then one day, nothing. Silence like a door locked slowly. Until I saw it online. His paper. Daniel's name as lead author. The title, my title, with 2 words rearranged. The abstract, my abstract in different clothing. The method, my method. The conclusion, my breath retold. I refreshed the page until my vision burned. I told myself there must be a mistake. Convergence happens. Science is not poetry. Then I opened the appendix. And there it was. My diagram. Unchanged. Copied. Even my typo was there. I did not scream. I did not cry. I aged 10 years in a minute. I wrote to him immediately. No reply. I called. Disconnected. I contacted the institute. They informed me, politely, that intellectual property disputes were complex matters, and if I wished to lodge a complaint, I would need evidence of precedence. I had it. Emails. Time-stamped files. Private messages. Saved drafts older than his children. I filed my complaint. Then nothing happened. I waited. 3 weeks. Nothing. I followed up. Another polite email. Internal review. Please be patient. I knew in my bones what that meant. He is more valuable than you. Daniel had publications. Sponsors. Momentum. I had resentment and files. I consulted a lawyer. He was young enough to still lie kindly. We can try. We tried. The institute formed a committee. They summoned Daniel. He denied wrongdoing calmly, gracefully. He said we collaborated and that my role was informal support. He was charming in his remorse. The committee ruled no formal breach. I was devastated. Not because I had lost, but because betrayal felt ordinary. I spiraled. For a year, I did nothing but work repetitive jobs and develop a hard relationship with alcohol. My mind, once electric, now flickered wildly between rage and apathy. I stopped writing science. I stopped hoping. Then one afternoon, I received a newsletter. Daniel was being nominated for a major grant. Millions. I stared at the screen until my head quieted. Something in me turned cold. Not angry. Clear. Revenge, I realized, does not begin as fire. It begins as ice. I stopped drinking. I went back to my work. Not the old version. I started over. I rebuilt the entire model from scratch, cleaner, better, leaner. I wrote new code, designed experiments Daniel would never have the patience to attempt. I worked in brutal isolation and loved it. 2 years passed. Then 3. My version surpassed his. Not in speed. In truth. In unpredictability. Where Daniel's design relied on neat assumptions, mine swallowed chaos and sang with it. I published under a pseudonym in obscure journals. Slowly at first. Then louder. I waited. Fame in science comes like rot, quiet then total. The first time Daniel cited my pseudonym, my chest went light. He had no idea. He was eating the shadow of my work again, but this time it would poison him. I attended a conference where I knew he would be. I wore a borrowed suit and a new face. Age had added gravity to me. Pain had added restraint. I sat in the back row where ghosts belong. He gave his presentation, glowing with borrowed confidence, now polished to a mirror shine. He ended with my conclusions, distorted, simplified, elegant, and wrong. When questions opened, I stood. My name is Elias, I lied. And I dismantled him. Not emotionally. Scientifically. I asked questions that could not be dodged. I quoted numbers he didn't know the origin of. I gestured gently and tore assumption from assumption. The room shifted, the way it does when a priest drops the Bible. By the end, Daniel looked pale. Afterwards, he found me in the hallway. You, he said softly. I know you. No, I said. You know my handwriting. He stared. I built something better. I continued. And I did it while you were being famous. Let the Institute know. All of it. Tonight. You'll destroy me. I smiled. You did that years ago, I said. I only waited until you did it publicly. I walked away. The next day, I released everything. All files. All timestamps. The comparison papers. The emails. Every digital fingerprint. Ruthlessly organized. Unemotionally presented. Undeniable. Daniel was suspended pending investigation before evening. The Institute, desperate to appear ethical, published a statement filled with shame-flavored fog. A month later, Daniel resigned. His grant vanished. His publications were frozen. His face disappeared from the website the same way it had once appeared, efficiently. I expected satisfaction. I got silence. Revenge is not a party. It is an empty room after a storm. He wrote me, eventually, a single email. I was under pressure. I thought we would share credit later. I never intended for it to go this far. I'm sorry. I stared at it a long time. Then I deleted it. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. I did not want a story in me anymore. I published openly after that. I took on students. I taught them how not to become me. Or him. Daniel vanished into consultancy, last I heard, using a version of himself no one asks questions about. Sometimes, very rarely, I wonder if I went too far. Then I remember the night I understood the world would never correct him on its own. Some people call revenge bitter. It wasn't. It was surgical. It removed infection. What remained was scar tissue and clean blood. Years later, when I finally walked into my own lab for the first time, key trembling in my hand, I laughed out loud. Not because I'd won, but because I had built something no one could steal. A life.